Tonight we're at the Office Restaurant and Lounge in Toms River. A jam-packed show tonight. We'll have the Indians from Toms River South here talking about their big win in Week 5. Head coach Ron Signorino Jr., an outstanding two-way senior lineman Ryan Florio. Tons of playoff talk, both Shore Conference postseason pods, NJSI playoffs. Really a lot to get to. Week 6 is already here. Just 2 weeks left in the regular season. And then it's on to the playoffs. Hard to believe. It feels like we were just putting together these previews just a couple of weeks ago. But that is where we are right now. This is the Varsity Link Coaches Corner. We are the Shore Sports Network. Bob Batters here alongside Ed Sarluca, filling in again for Kevin Williams. Home resting up. We hope Kevin is better soon. Steve Meyer behind the camera. Tom Tremblay, our engineer tonight. And Ed, like I said, really a jam-packed show to get to.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
You used that word playoff. Explain what you mean by that.
Playoffs. We got
talking
some stuff.
Playoffs?
We are talking playoffs, channeling our Jim Mora. But, yeah, it's again, Week 6 is here. 2 regular season weeks left, not including Thanksgiving, of course. And then there it is, Shore Conference postseason, then the NJSA playoffs. And we'll be crowning champions before you know it. We already have in the 8 Shore Conference divisions, 7 of them have been decided in terms of we have one team that has clinched at least a share. We have another division that's wide open. So some huge games coming up this weekend, some more big games next weekend, and on different levels too. Championship games, but then some other ones that might not jump out, but teams fighting for playoff spots, positioning in the playoffs. So some fun stuff coming up, Ed.
Yeah, I think last week, I think we'd have to use the term upsets, because there were quite a few upsets, some against undefeated teams. Let's take Southern Regional right off the bat, where Manalapan 21-15 win over Southern. Southern had come in undefeated, looking for an undefeated season, get beat by Manalapan.
Yeah, I was there.
You were
down
there.
in Manahawkin on Friday night. An impressive win for Manalapan in the sense it was a 3-phase victory. Manalapan's known for their great special teams, and they did it again. A pair of field goals, a long kickoff return for a touchdown, some really clutch defensive stops, and then did just enough offensively to get the win. Southern really undone by 4 turnovers. Had the ball inside the Manalapan 10-yard line, had 4 times, came away with 9 points. Tough to win, especially in that Colonial division, when you don't execute. And, an impressive win for Manalapan. And, again, this is a Manalapan team. It's 1 loss, came in overtime to an undefeated Middletown South team. So the Braves, after a down year last year, coming back under second-year head coach Dom Lepori and playing really well.
Our Facebook Live show last week took us to Wall, where Coltsneck, who had come in with, and I'll put air quotes there, undefeated, when they picked up their Donovan Catholic forfeit victory. But they were dominated for the second week in a row, and Wall is back.
Yeah, and you were there for that. And you're right, second straight, lopsided loss for the Cougars. It's a tough division, that American division.
Yeah, it sure is.
Cougars drop out of the top 10 for the first time this season in our latest Jeep Store Shore Sports Network rankings. And we were talking about this off the air. You said very impressed with Wall.
Oh, very.
Obviously, they're healthier, a different team than what we saw those first couple weeks. What stood out to you there on Friday night?
Well, their running back situation, Matt Dolliv, outstanding game, a couple of long touchdowns. I think he had maybe 150 yards or so. Their quarterback, Davis, ran very well. I mean, he impressed me. And remember now, these guys are replacing guys like Larkin and Logan Peters. Mm-hmm. They didn't miss a step. They might have stumbled a little out of the blocks, but that first week they were very injured. Charlie Sasso is back, full strength. Colin Riley, who they thought had an ACL after their Del Barton scrimmage, actually it turned out to be an MCL, but he sustained another injury and missed most of the game Friday night. He's expected to be back, though, for these big games down the stretch. Defensively, they live off their defense. Coach Bellina does a tremendous job with it. I put him right up there with Jerry Schulte as far as defensive coordinators and stuff like that. Of course, Jerry is the head coach, but runs his defense very well. I mean, they are just tough. And when you live off your defense, obviously, and only give up 1 touchdown or no touchdowns, you're going to win most of the games.
Yeah, Wall, after that 35-0, shocking loss to Rumson. Not the loss itself, just how it played out. They gave 20 points in a loss to Red Bank Catholic, and that was without Sasso. And the last 2 weeks, shut out against Toms River North, 35-6 against Colts Neck. And that sets up what should be an awesome game on Friday night. Number 4 Wall at number 3 Donovan Catholic. We'll touch on that a little bit more later.
I just want to mention one more thing about that game. Unfortunately for Colts Neck, Tommy Fallon, their outstanding quarterback, who, Bob, 80% of the team, Tommy Fallon?
I mean, he's
a big part of their team.
4-year starter.
Hurt early in that contest, did not return at all. So they were going with a backup quarterback, Runfolo, who did a fairly nice job, but it wasn't Tommy Fallon.
Yeah, that's their guy. That's what their offense is certainly built around. So it's going to be tough sledding without him if he's unable to go this week, especially with Rumson coming to town on Saturday.
Another big upset. We're going to have them in the house tonight. The Indians went down to Freehold 14-13 in overtime. That's a huge win for the Indians.
Huge one, and obviously we'll get to that in depth when we have Coach Signorino and Ryan Florio on. But, yeah, it's a big one. Holding down an explosive offense, hold them to just one touchdown in regulation, stopping a 2-point conversion at the end. For Toms River South playoff hopes, that was a must-win, and they got it on the road.
Saturday, you went up to the big, what are we going to call it, low division
the big
championship,
little
the big little game. Monmouth and Keyport. Monmouth's got to be one of the surprise teams in the Shore this year. Keyport was my preseason pick to win that division. Let me down a little bit there, and Monmouth comes away with a 28-7 victory, which gives them the national division championship.
Yeah, at least the share of the division title. They can clinch it outright with a win over Point Beach on Saturday. Very impressed with Monmouth. Again, a complete victory. Julian Jones ran for 244 yards. Defense forced 3 turnovers. And they've done a nice job. That was a team that was winless 2 seasons ago. Third-year head coach Dan Wendell and his staff have really done a good job turning that around. And here they are. This is only the 3rd division title in Monmouth's history. They don't have a huge football tradition. Last division title came in 2006. They're trying to reach the playoffs for only the 4th time in program history. So really good to see the Falcons having some success. They were also our Jersey Mike's football team of the week. You can check that out on shoresportsnetwork.com. Some good things happening over in Tinton Falls.
Yeah, happy for them. And, Monmouth, as you said, and one of our sponsors, the Butcher Block, Tommy D'Ambrisi.
That's true.
Ex-Monmouth star.
And that was that 2016 when they were coached by Bobby Acosta.
Exactly.
And went on, and I will say, and
IMG.
And we'll have Rich Carroll on soon, Middletown athletic director. Those guys at South still give me a lot of flack for somehow picking Monmouth to go and win at the Swamp that year. I don't know. I was drinking the Kool-Aid too, I guess, but that was an impressive Monmouth team for certain.
That's for sure.
And then also another game we've been talking about a lot. The Bushman won't like to hear this as he's getting ready to order his dinner, but Howell with a huge comeback win, 33-28 over Lacey. Lacey was up 21-0 at one point, and Howell, which was winless coming in. That's a huge gut check moment, a huge comeback. Really a dominant second half. Covered an onside kick late with about 5 minutes left. Went down, scored the winner. Connor Gordon, their senior running back, 3 touchdown runs. Returned the kickoff for a touchdown. First win for head coach Bill Hill as Howell's head coach. So nice moment there for the Rebels.
You said it, on the ground no less.
Mm-hmm.
Howell had moved the ball periodically through their first 5 games. Are they 0-5 or 4?
They're 0-4.
0-4, but this week they ran the ball and controlled the ball on Lacey. Official stats: Lacey unbelievably ran 10 offensive plays in the second half. That's domination on the ground.
And then one more thriller was Manasquan coming back from a 2-touchdown deficit to win 35-28 in overtime over Raritan. A touchdown run by Patrick Woodford, their senior running back, on the first play of overtime. That stood up as a game winner. A really good win because Raritan 1-3, a deceiving mark, considering their losses are to Red Bank Catholic, Central, and Manasquan, all teams that are ranked in the top 10. They're a well-coached team. They're going to be a tough out. And that was a tough road win for the Warriors.
Yeah, don't know how to pick Raritan. Even Manasquan.
Have you seen my picks? I don't know how to pick any of these games. So
I'm hanging in there. One thing we can't do is let a doctor beat us.
Dr. Bede, yeah.
Dr. Bede.
Wow.
We can't let him beat us in picks, you know. And I think Matt Harmon, who leads us now in the picks, we got some tough games coming up, but we can't let Dr. Bede win that. Let's talk some pods.
We will.
After
A couple other things to get to. Freehold Township, first win of the year, 29-0 shutout over Matawan. The teams that clinched at least to share their division title were Rumson in the American Division. You have Middletown South, who, by virtue of Southern losing, clinched at least a share.
They were off last week.
Yes, had a bye. Red Bank Catholic in the Constitution. Long Branch in the Freedom Division. Nothing in the Independents. That's wide open. Middletown, North Brick, Lacey all tied 2-1 in division. Central with a shutout over Marlboro clinched at least a share. We talked about Monmouth Regional, and Point Borough has already clinched a share. They had a bye week as well. So.
Right. They will play Barnegat for the outright championship this Friday night. Don't forget another surprise team of the year, the Green Wave of Long Branch. Put up 53 against Toms River East.
I'll keep using the same line every week because why not? I mean, the Danny George Farewell Tour is doing pretty well. Like you said, I don't think any of us knew exactly what to expect from Long Branch. That win over Freehold opened everyone's eyes, and they've really just been putting it on teams since then. So, an explosive offense that's scoring points in a variety of different ways, scoring points on special teams as well, and their defense getting involved. So, the Green Wave are they have a good chance to enter the pods undefeated. So that would be certainly be a nice thing for them, getting into the playoffs and trying to do some damage in Danny's last year. Well, with that, we will take a quick break, and we come back. We will talk playoffs. That's right, playoffs, Ed. So when we come back, we'll be joined by Marlboro Athletic Director Dave Ryden and Middletown Athletic Director Rich Carroll, and we'll sort all this stuff out. We'll be right back. You're watching the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network.
One, two, three, family!
Back here at the Office Restaurant and Lounge in Toms River on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner. I'll tell you about Varsity Link. It's the athletes' social media network, the first social media platform designed as a recruitment tool to help enhance an athlete's opportunity and a coach's recruitment process. Varsity Link allows friends, family, and the football community a chance to be part of the action as athletes and coaches post and interact. So to join the community, go to Varsity Link, www.varsitylink.com, or download the Varsity Link app on the Google Play or the Apple App Store. So with that, we will welcome in our guys who have done so much work behind the scenes that I don't even know if we don't have the time today to describe, and that's to my left, Marlboro Athletic Director Dave Ryden and Middletown Athletic Director Rich Carroll. First of all, guys, thanks for coming down on a Wednesday night and talking some playoffs with us. All these things that have happened within the Shore and within the state, which we'll get to later, you guys have had a huge hand in, and it's going pretty well. It really is. The divisions are great. We got some playoffs coming up. So, again, thanks for coming down and talking it through with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Both of these guys, by the way, are on the executive committee of the Shore Conference, we should state that right up front.
First off, I want to talk about the divisions and the alignment that we're in now compared to the old A North, A South. Like it's a stark contrast, and for a lot of people, it was very hard to deal with in the beginning. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but you look at this year and you look at the divisions, and we just went through it and how competitive they are every week. This is why you guys did this. So it's got to be nice to look at the way it's played out this season and to see how competitive it is and how all the coaches are saying it. Like I talked to Dom Lepore after the game, the Southern game, and he said, this is what it's all about. He goes, 55-0 at half, like that's not fun. Because these are the games the kids and the coaches want to be a part of, and we've seen it on pretty much a weekly basis from almost every game.
And that's been the having you guys compliment us about what we're doing and recognizing that we have tried to make it better for everybody. that's been the great part of this. But showing, seeing, at Marlboro, to see the kids in the hallways and the hype that's going on in our school, because week in and week out, it's not, oh, we're just going to get beat by this team, so it doesn't matter. It's more of a, we could win this. You had Coach D'Agato on last week, and he said, you look at every division, there's really not a clear winner in every one. You just said it here that you're having trouble picking. Yeah. That's, it's why we're doing this. No one wants to see a high school team get blown out week in and week out. And we've seen it in the divisions now that there are, things that need to be tweaked. There are some schools that are going to move, and there's some, and that's the beauty of this, is that we do this every year. We reevaluate it every year. I mean, the amount of data that Rich and I talk on a daily basis, and it's most of the time it's about football and it's about, what happened on Monday. It's, usually a 2-hour conversation about the data and stuff that we saw. So it's been awesome, to say the least.
By far, it's an ongoing process, that'll carry over right to next year for sure. Rich, pods begin week 7 and 8. Maybe longer. 8 and 9. Excuse me. 8 and 9. October 22nd and October 27th. Okay, who exactly is the committee, if you could tell us, selecting these pods?
Sure. The committee met this morning, actually, for about 3 hours. Myself and Dave are on the committee. Will Sunderman, Nick Pizzulli, Tommy Stark, John Germano, Chuck Donahue Jr., and who am I missing? Harry Chibukin. So we met for about 3 hours, struggling, like you predicting the games. Trying to pod these teams is very difficult too. So.
Okay, well, I'm sure there'll be a little controversy, and before you guys came on, we were talking about, well, who is going to be the top 4 team? And I got hit with a big curveball and said the top 4 team may not be 4; it may be 6.
It may be 6. It might be 8.
Might be 8.
It may be 40.
Right.
It's
maybe 3.
It's almost impossible to pick right now the top 4. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that we would like to drive home is it's not a championship. It's not for a short conference title. It is to continue the regular season, the additional 2 games, and have the games be competitive still. If it wasn't the COVID season last year, we kind of were forced into this.
Yes.
We looked at it as, hey, let's try it this year, see if it works. The meeting this morning lasted almost 3.5 hours, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot of good. We learned a lot of bad. We learned, what we can do, what we can't do. And it's going to be, we have 2 more weeks to figure out, what's going to happen. And it could be a 4, it could be a 6, it could be an 8. We have to really look at the data and move forward and figure out what's going to be the best for the teams in the short conference.
The biggest issue we had right now is when we started the season, we had 43 teams.
Right.
So we made a deal with the 3 teams not to be in a pod: Keensburg, Keyport, and Point Beach. And then we would have 10 pods of 4. Right before the season started, Mater Dei dropped football, so now we have 39. So it's a mathematical issue we also struggle with right now.
So it's entirely possible that one of the arguments that the coaches give us, okay, we have coaches on every week, is that, well, the top 4 teams, they're going to get into the best pod. We have no shot, even though we may be 6-0. Good point. So now you're telling me that we're not going to let those 6-0 teams go by the board. We may put them in the top spot, and they may have a chance to beat some of those good teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. The whole premise of the whole thing was to get competitive games.
Right.
So, if it's whoever against, Red Bank Catholic, Middletown South against Red Bank Catholic, whoever it is, competitive games. That's the only purpose of the pods.
And there is, and I know there's, like you said, there's so much data that you guys go through. You use, the UPR, which is a factor in things. There's the strength of schedule. Like there's all these factors that go into it. But I know at the same time, that's why you guys meet as humans, because there's a subjective part of this where you look at it and you say, okay, like this undefeated team is not the same as this undefeated team and
right.
shouldn't be matched up with them. let's say, for example, like if Point Borough finishes undefeated, like Point Borough RBC is probably not the game to make. So
Right.
it's not as simple. And like Ed said, there are some teams that will probably have undefeated or maybe won't lost and say, hey, we can be in there. But there's other teams that will probably have those same kind of records and say, no, we don't belong in there. So at the same time, how much of a challenge is that where you're matching those teams up regardless of how good the regular season was, still with teams that they should be playing? You know, that's kind of the whole thing.
Right, and then that then flows into next year with
Yes.
realigning the divisions, you know, because it's hard to judge what's going to happen week in and week out. It's hard to judge what's going to happen year in and year out. So that's where it has to come down to us looking at what is going on, who it is, and then what their wins were, what their wins weren't, and then where they fall. Because you're right. I mean, you have Keyport that's having a great season, but you're not going to put Keyport up against a juggernaut.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's
You're
not
not gonna
fair to
have a
those
one-loss
kids.
Keyport
That
team
goes
playing
that goes
Manalapan.
right. That goes against everything that we've been trying to do. And trying to keep the competitiveness. We have goals in mind. Competitive games, getting as many short conference teams into the state tournament. With now using the way that we rank in the state tournament with the OSI and the UPR, you have to play competitive games. If you don't, you're not going to make
be
the
penalized,
playoffs.
right?
Yeah, and it's, and that's what we're also looking at. We don't want to put these teams into these groups to move on for the next 2 weeks and then have someone get hurt. So that's we have to look at it from that perspective as well.
Rich, originally there was thought about naming the pods. Maybe naming one the Warren Wolf pod, the Vic Caboo pod. I hear that may not be exactly what may happen.
Well, this is a pilot program for this year, so going forward, we don't know what it's going to be like. So I think if the pods were to continue at some point, I think that would be a great idea. I know we were talking earlier tonight, maybe the traditional names of the divisions, maybe we name them after the coaches instead if we don't continue the pod. So, but,
I love that idea, by the way.
So it's always a work in progress. For about the past 5 or 6 years, it's been a yearly work in progress. We've changed something every year. Again, this was the pods, and we're finding out good and bad about what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, obviously when you have a 14 pod, it's pretty easy because there's 2 weeks of this. If you guys were to expand it, how logistically would you guys try to make that happen, given there's just those 2 weeks there to work with?
Well, we'd have to look at who's played each other already.
Okay.
We're trying to avoid the multiple teams playing each
Yes.
other. You know what I mean? Take a Wall and a Rumson Fairhaven. They're the same group size, so they can see each other in the regular season, see each other in the pod, and then they can see each other again in the playoffs. We're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
With a 10-game schedule, 3 games playing the same team is a lot.
Yeah.
Then you have the argument, well, you do that in basketball all the time. Well, right, but you have a 30-game schedule or 26-game schedule in basketball. If Marlboro's playing Middletown South in basketball, you might have 2 divisional games, maybe in the WOBM, maybe in the short conference tournament, maybe in the States, but 5 into
times.
30 is a lot different than 3 into 10.
Yeah.
So we're trying to look at it from that perspective. We also are trying we try to balance home and away. So right now most teams have had 3 home games, 3 away games.
Yeah. Middletown South, they played their first 3 games. We haven't had a home game since the middle of September. And
Exactly.
right now on the schedule, we don't have another home game.
Right.
So.
You have people that that takes away from the home crowd, the home field advantage, and we're trying to balance that out as well.
Concessions and the parents and
Homecoming.
how much work
Yeah.
they do.
Homecoming,
and so
senior
on.
night. There's a lot of stuff that factors into that. So we're looking at that as well. So it would be looking at matchups of if you hypothetically you went to a 16 pod, you would look at who didn't play each other yet, put them together.
Okay.
Or maybe even go for the next 2 weeks, and we schedule for the next 2 weeks out, and tell who's going to be home, who's away from what we already have done, and there's your 8-game schedule.
Now, as always, the controversy of Thanksgiving always comes up. This year, I believe there's 4 Thanksgiving Day games left of what used to be a lot more than that. Give me the thought process there.
Of what?
Allowing them to play on Thanksgiving.
At the state level,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You just if you look at it from just the shore conference, there's 4. But if you look at some of the matchups that are Thanksgiving Day games in the state,
Right, I understand.
You know, and that was one thing that when we did do when Rich and I sat at the committee level at the state level, working on the schedule for the playoffs. Thanksgiving was what we built it around because there was we understand that Middletown North, Middletown South. That Thanksgiving Day game is sacred there.
Yeah.
Easton versus Phillipsburg. That is that.
They'd rather play that game than play the playoffs.
Right,
Correct.
right, 100%. So it's like we're not gonna force a town that loves that to give that up just for the sake of a playoff. So we built the schedule around Thanksgiving, and that's kind of where we left it. So it will be up to the school if they don't want to play Thanksgiving. If they do want to play, it's going to stay. It's just one of those things.
And even next year, when you play to a true state champion, Thanksgiving will be preserved for those teams.
It's not affected at all.
Yeah, we'll get to. I got more questions on the state stuff. I want to finish up with in the shore first. What is, and I know last year was its own animal. I know it's hard to look at last year and judge anything off that because it was a unique year that hopefully we don't have to deal with again. But you had that final game where it was Wall and it was Donovan. It wasn't a shore conference championship, but in everyone's mind it was. And I know it's not going to be probably that same thing this year. It might be, depending on who is playing in those games, but just going forward, and like you said, this is a pilot year for this. What is the viability of maybe one day having a shore conference tournament or a shore conference, championship game in football?
I don't know. There's such a diverse, abilities and group sizes. I don't know that you can have a true, like a basketball where a Point Beach can come out of nowhere to win the Shore Conference Championship. So, you're going to have, there's only a limited number of teams that can win this Shore Conference football state championship. So, I don't know how feasible. You look at this week's games, and this is what it's all about. How many exciting games are coming up this week? How many meaningful games? And if we can continue that for 8 weeks through the short conference schedule, that's the goal.
Right.
More than even a short conference tournament.
Could there? And I'm just throwing something out because I just thought of this. If and that makes sense too, because you're like you said, it would take a Kenny Catoo's Key 14 to even compete against some of these Group 3, Group 4, Group 5 schools. Could there even be something down the line where, hey, maybe you take the 8 division champions and you do a little thing and have something like I'm just. If it's not a short conference championship, maybe it's just something extra at the end like it is now, maybe in a different format, but something where a team gets to maybe just have a little more bragging rights or something along those lines.
That's never going to happen.
It's
That's never going to happen.
The difficulty in that is we have a scheduling matrix that we use.
Okay.
Right. Even for example, when Mater Dei dropped varsity football this year, we couldn't just move a team up and then say, all right, this is where you're going to be now, because it would have blown up the entire matrix and we would have had to redo everything.
It was so late. It happened so late.
And it's a difficult thing. Scheduling is hard. It's not, and because what you do with one team affects a lot of others. So it doing something like that you would have to hold a week out, and then figure out where you're going to put the other teams in. So I'm sure it could be done. I'm not saying it can't.
I'm not trying to make a
but,
job harder.
but it's
something I thought.
but, just add one more thing to my plate.
The coaches like to have their schedule in front of them.
Yeah, right.
Even in the state tournament, you're going to either play Team A or Team B. Yeah. So the biggest complaint with the pods is, we have 6 games and then we don't know who we're going to play week 7 and 8, and that was the biggest complaint from the coaches.
Right. And don't forget, next year in the States, we're going to go all the way out.
All the way out.
Right.
To a Group 4, Group 3, Group 2, Group 1 champions.
Yep,
absolutely.
Which is
Can't
a
wait
step
for that.
in the right direction. That's for sure.
Give me a minute. We're going to get there. I promise you. Ed wants to talk state playoffs, and I totally get it. I want to, within divisions, we've had a lot of coaches. I wouldn't say a lot, but there's been enough coaches where you still hear them say, man, but we like playing our old traditional schedule. And I know, and I can see it on a lot of team schedules. The effort has been made to look, what are the 2 or 3 teams that if they can match up in the division, great, but get those teams as a non-divisional game. How much of that went into these division realignments, if it makes sense trying to preserve some of those traditional rivalries?
So the way the division alignment comes out is, we have divisions of 6 or 7. You play your division games, and then each team can request 2 crossover games. So, if Middletown North and Middletown South are in the same division, we can request that game. and our scheduler, Nick Pizzulli, does a good job of getting virtually every request. So really, you get 70-year games right there. So those traditional rivalries, the Toms River schools all want to play each other. They're not in the same division. So that does happen within the schedule.
Yeah.
I would have loved to heard the conversation when you got the phone call and Modern Day said, we're not going to play football this year. must have been a
It was silent.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Or words we can't repeat on air.
I guess you had heard rumors, but when it actually happened, I know it set you guys, into a frenzy and said, "Oh man, we got to adjust now." But I'll tell you, I think you did a nice job, and it came through in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That reminds me of the one thing I just want to ask you about, because the one thing that I hear complaints from a lot of people, and I try to explain it to them, and I'll let you guys do, is people go, well, hey, wait a second, why is RBC in that division? And I try to explain to them of the separation of the Catholic schools, and Modern Day should have been in that second division, the division with Middletown South and Southern and Jackson and Manalapan and Holmdel. And by the time they dropped, right, it was too
August,
late to make
yeah.
a change, right, because
It was
of the
August.
schedule.
It was you literally had your scrimmages scheduled already, and you were already practicing pretty much when it happened. And that's why the reason why all the non-publics were separated, because they're all multiplier schools. Yeah. We try to give the opportunity for the public schools to get a multiplier school on their schedule. Mm-hmm. We are seeing now at the state level. We're working on not eliminating the multiplier, but trying to figure out ways that we don't need to use it. I mean, it started off as a way for the teams up north to play the Big Six. And then we were like, well, wait a minute, you can't have a multiplier for them, but not let us. It's not a fair playing field.
Yes.
So now we're at a point now using the OSI, the UPR, and we might not necessarily, because we're not using PowerPoints the way it traditionally was, that we can maybe get rid of the multiplier, and then possibly have realign the divisions so that the like teams are playing each other.
Would either of you like to make a comment about the Donovan Catholic situation?
No.
No?
Clerical error, I mean, no. It happened, and
could
we're
happen.
dealing with it. It could happen
It
to
could
any
happen
of
to
us.
any of us.
My question as far as that is, when it comes to the when it comes to the pods now,
Right.
Do you have to go off what they did on the field? Because if you don't, you're gonna put them in a bad situation, and the teams they're playing probably in a bad situation, right? Okay.
And that was a long conversation this morning,
Yeah.
what to do with them,
Right.
where they belong and things like that. And exactly what you just talked about, Bob. We penalize teams below them that in the second pod or something like that. So that was a major point of contention this morning.
Yeah.
All right, now we can move on to state playoff talk, because the show's getting late early. But you guys, not only within the Shore, but have been heavily involved in this step to finally get us down to an overall state championship game. And I could see the look on your face. It's even when we talk about it, it's like, finally we got there. I know it was, what you had, 7, 8 years?
It's been 7, 8 years.
And that will go into effect next season. So it's there. You know what's going to happen. Just the excitement and knowing that the work you guys put in, that in 2022, we're going to play down to a true state champion. There will be a, group 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 New Jersey Public School state champion.
Can't wait. I can't wait. And I will beg and plead with the NJSIA for me to be there when we finally crown that first New Jersey state champion. It started off with the challenge that we got, from an athletic director that won't be named, who is a very good friend of mine, and it had snowballed into a coalition plan, and me bringing in one of my students that figured out a program to use to where it is today. And when that vote went through and it was unanimous, it was the greatest feeling, I mean, that I've had in my career right now. It was, it was awesome. It was awesome.
I didn't think we'd get there. 6 years ago when we met in a hotel room in Atlantic City and everybody was screaming, and it almost came to blows that night. And we all walked out together, and we told Jack, the boys, this will never happen. Yep. And there was actually 2 playoff proposals being voted on by the executive board of the NJSI. Right. And now to come together with the 5 football conferences, they talk, weekly about different things. We've worked together. We have crossover games, things like that. So it's come together real well, and the kids of the state will benefit for it.
Absolutely. And that's the good thing about the whole thing. Again, it comes down to the kids.
The Bible of high school football seems to be gridiron.com, correct?
Gridiron, New Jersey.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think it's about 16 pages on Gridiron. And now I've been around over 50 years. I went on there and started reading about what's happening in the state. How do you figure out this and that and this? I was totally confused. I was
Look, Ed,
totally
that's why we got the computers.
totally confused. I mean, how they're going to determine this and that, and how, because it's the reason was because it could be different games. I mean, different number of games for different teams, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, that's
And you throw in the COVID situation this year
Right.
where games weren't knocking wood in the shore. We didn't have any, but around the state, COVID,
Right.
flooding, canceled games.
Yeah,
So there
that's
was, almost 20 games canceled around the state. So how do you factor those games in?
I know. Yeah, they had it a lot worse up north than we did down here.
Yeah, I mean,
With Ida.
Yeah, who would have thought of that?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden that happened, and we're like, okay.
Well, that's going to add, if there's 20 pages on Gridiron, 21 next
21.
year, because you got to
Addendum.
throw hurricane.
we gotta figure
You got to
hurricanes
throw
in
the
that.
hurricane page in there.
Yep.
Well, guys, we could talk to you all night about this.
We
really,
could.
but it's only an hour show, unfortunately. So I really want to thank both of you for coming down on a Wednesday night. I know athletic director schedules are insanely busy, so we appreciate you coming down and giving us some great info, and appreciate you guys, the work you guys have done behind the scenes. I mean, I think this season has been excellent in terms of the competitive balance, and we still got some more games to go and some playoffs too. So it's been a lot of fun, and we appreciate the work you guys have done and for coming down tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very
That's
much
Rich
for having us.
Carroll,
Thank you.
Middletown, and Dave Ryan from Marlboro. Thank those guys for coming down. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back talking Tom's River South football here at the Office Restaurant and Lounge. You're watching the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network.
One, two, three, family!
Back here on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner, live from the Office Restaurant Lounge in Toms River. A couple things to tell you about before we get to our guests here tonight. Varsity Link, it's the athlete's social media network, the first social media platform designed as a recruitment tool to help enhance an athlete's opportunity and a coach's recruitment process. It allows friends, family, and the football community a chance to be a part of the action as athletes and coaches post and interact. So to join the Varsity Link community, visit www.varsitylink.com. You can download the Varsity Link app. They got updates coming fast and furious over there. Well, one every week or 10 days or so. Those guys are doing some great things. So head to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And also, you might have heard Ed mention before, our Butcher's Block Game Day Countdown Game of the Week. Last week was a good one. We were at Wall for the Wall Colts Net game. And this week we'll be at Donovan Catholic for Donovan versus Wall in a big American Division matchup. Stop by, look for the Shore Sports Network SUV. Sign up to win dinner for 6 at the Butcher's Block table and Butcher in Long Branch with limousine service. Ed's not driving the limo.
No,
He's
I
been
told
saying
you
it every
I
week.
changed the oil in the limo.
Yeah,
so
you
we're
did.
ready to roll. We're ready to roll.
So if you win, it may or may not be Ed picking you up. I really don't even know at this point. But you win, you get dinner for 6 at the block with limousine service. An outstanding restaurant will be opening up soon And those guys do a fantastic job up there. So look for the Shore Sports Network SUV Friday night at Donovan Catholic. Sign up to win. It'll be a heck of a prize if you do come out as the winner. Right now, we're joined by our guests from just down the street. Nice little short drive for these guys. We're talking Toms River South football here on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner. Right now, we're delighted to be joined by Indians head coach Ron Signorino Jr. and a senior two-year starter as well, Ryan Florio. Guys, thanks a lot for coming down on a Wednesday night, couple nights out from game day and talking some Indians football with us.
Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be here, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure.
So Ronnie, 11 years. Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
I remember when you started, there was no gray in that beard.
I know. I didn't know it was video. I thought it was radio, but I got a face for radio.
Hey, 11 years, before we get into last week, 11 years as the head coach at South, but how many years total in terms of being an assistant and as a player?
Yeah, I think I did that with Rob. I think it's 34,
Oh, wow.
33?
Yeah.
33 years.
It's in your blood.
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
is. I don't think I had a choice.
Sometimes those choices are made from our parents, right?
No doubt.
So we got to go back to last week. I mean, you guys going in 1-3, traveling to Freehold on Saturday, a tough opponent, team that was, ranked in the top 10 early this season, an offense that is a pain in the neck to deal with, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And you guys are driving back on the bus on Saturday afternoon with a 14-13 overtime victory. Huge win on so many levels, big for playoffs, just big to have a win over that kind of team. How did you guys do it? How did you guys, first of all, to hold down an offense that has the ability to score 40 points, pretty much on anybody, and you guys held them to two touchdowns?
It's a nightmare to defend. I mean, Dave does a great job up there. They just seem to always the jersey numbers change, but the players don't. And, he's got some real good ones this year as well. We kind of sat down and said, we really can't play our normal defense, what we want to do here, because it's such a different offense, So we just tried to, without saying too much, but we just kind of changed some different things, which I think actually ended up really helping us. I mean, they had success. They moved the ball. They had some yardage, but bottom line is, like you say, 13 points. That was a heck of a feat, defensively for us. Our guys fought their guts out. I mean, it was a beautiful day, hot day, but anytime you can beat Freehold Borough, it's a great win, no question.
And you mentioned, Ryan, I'll ask you this. Coach mentioned you gave up yards. Like, I got the Freehold stats later that day, and I was like, they moved the ball. Against an offense like that, is it more about really that phrase you hear, bend but don't break? Like, they're probably going to hit some big plays, but try to buckle down when it matters and keep them out of the end zone?
Especially with their offense. I mean, we expected them to break big plays, but, I mean, it's all about being disciplined, doing your job, being where you got to be. And, I mean, if all 11 of us do it, we're going to be perfectly fine. And, I mean, it worked out perfectly.
Ryan, your season has sort of been up and down. You've had some great wins. You had some bad losses.
Yeah.
Tell us about how coaches kept this team together.
I feel like it was a big effort between all of us. Starting off against Brick, we took they
Tough
scored
loss.
50. Yeah, tough loss. We scored with 50 seconds left. Next week we came back in. We played against East. We didn't play very well. And then we came back against Brick Memorial, took a win. And then after that, we hit a few of our guys got COVID. Oh, my fault. A few of our guys got COVID, including me. And then, St. John Vianney, we took a pretty big loss. But, coming back against Freehold, we knew we had a good team. Everyone was back. Came back with a great week of practice and, took a win. And then now we play Long Branch. And just like last week, we're having a great week of practice.
Yeah, an unfortunate part of still what we're going through here. But I just want to go back to Freehold a second. That offense, and we've talked to those guys a bunch about it, but it's so different. Like, I really want to ask you about it because you've been around coaching for a long time. They run empty.
Yeah.
There's never a running back. Maybe once in a while.
There
you see
wasn't
running
one
back
snap
back
of a running
exactly.
back. Yeah, not one.
So totally empty. You have to count for that extra blocker. You have to count for the quarterback who can run it on every play, but also pull back and throw it with advantages in terms of numbers that you don't typically see. How different is that offense in terms of like what you guys have ever seen throughout your career?
Yeah, well, it is different because we changed a lot of what we would normally do. Like I was saying earlier, we, they stretch you horizontally and vertically, and their kid is always a dual threat guy. I mean, if he's not running it, he's throwing it, and you say to yourself sometimes, how can like one guy, like the whole team is wrapped around the one guy, and they do a really good job. Their O-line is well coached. They combo block real well. But I think because we were a little bit unorthodox in what we tried to do, I think it slowed them down as far as touchdowns.
Yeah.
We came up with some big plays, a couple fumbles, we recovered. And the other side of that is offensively, we shortened the game. We literally used the play clock on every snap. So we just figured, we try to get these guys some less snaps. Less snaps, could maybe, benefit us, because they're so explosive. So it was a well thought out game plan on both sides of the ball. And the guys, like I said, they played really well. We had some adversity and they responded. That's what we talk about. Don't react, but respond to what's going on. And we did that, and I was happy for our guys. They really fought their guts out.
Ryan, I'm sure you've been looking at film of Long Branch all week. Tell us a little bit about the Green Wave and what to expect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're a great team, obviously. I think
Undefeated.
What are they, number 7 in the shore, number 5?
Yeah, they're
Something
up there.
Yeah, they're up there. They got a great quarterback. I mean, they got a good O-line. They hit. They come off the ball. They're a physical team. Their defense comes off. I mean, it's going to be a great game. Hopefully we can come back. We'll see what the scoreboard is on Saturday. It's going to be a good game.
You guys have seen a lot. Like, I'll go over what you guys have done so far. Like, you have seen a lot of different styles of offense.
Yeah.
Like, Brick is kind of back and running that old school wing tee a little bit.
Yeah.
East does what they do. Obviously, Brickmore runs the option. You guys always play that well because that's what you do.
Right.
Vianney's going to do a little bit of eye. They have the guys to spread you out.
A little bit
Obviously,
everything.
Freehold's its own animal.
Right.
And then Long Branch is kind of that same thing. They can go power if they want. They can spread you out. But in terms of seeing a variety of different offenses and some explosive offenses and had some success last week, does that make you feel good going in because you know you're going to put your players in situations that they actually have been in before and have been able to respond?
Well, and Long Branch is unique in the fact that, again, very well coached. Danny does a great job. He knew what he was doing coming back. But, like they'll stretch you horizontally, stretch you vertically, throw it deep, throw it little bubbles, but then come out and run power or counter, So you have to be ready and prepared for all of it. But the fact that we were able to put together a real good game plan and execute it last week certainly makes us feel a little better going into this week with an explosive offense in Long Branch.
Yeah, Ryan, does that going piggyback on off what Coach Sig just said? That's got to give you guys not only the confidence, but you see what you did last week. Hey, we execute, do the little things, play mistake-free, force the other team to make mistakes themselves. You guys can be right in it. Like, how much does that? Again, I'll go back to confidence. Like, it justifies what you guys have been told and what you guys are practicing all week. So now you know if you go out and do that, and you should be right.
Oh
in the
yeah,
game.
exactly. As long as we follow the game plan, we're gonna have a good day.
Ronnie, a couple things. Number one, I had breakfast with your dad yesterday.
Mike, I'm sorry to hear that.
and I'm telling you, it was your dad, and right next to him, George Jack. Now, those two guys
100
had
some years, right?
Had quite a few stories.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
bet. Yeah.
I mean, there were other people there, but everybody was huddled around those two guys. And Dad looked great. I thought he really looked great.
Yeah.
Is he taking an active part, in the Indians this year, helping you out a little bit?
He's not during the week.
Right.
Every now and then he'll come around, but he gets in my ear over the weekend. I like this, I didn't like that. What are you doing that for? What the heck you doing? Some of that kind of stuff.
That's good.
Just him and I. But at this point, no, he's not really a full-time coach on the staff. But he goes to our freshman games. He goes to our JV games. He'll come to the varsity games. He just, he loves football. That's all he knows.
wants to be involved. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That's for sure.
He's doing great.
That reminds me a question I'll ask you in a couple, but I want to touch on your team and a bunch of the guys. Your defense has played really well this year. You sent me some numbers today.
Yeah.
And a bunch of guys contributing. Joel Small leads your team in tackles. He has a sack. Devin Ravis, Elijah Metellus. The guys you probably expected coming in.
Yeah.
What really jumped out to me, and seen it every week when the scores come in, but your special teams. You guys have returned 3 kickoffs for touchdowns. Your kicker, Cam Stein, hasn't had to attempt a field goal, but he's 8 for 8. He's doing what he needs to on extra points. But those special teams plays, those are game changers.
Yeah.
So when you can get those kinds of plays, just how much does a lift in that? it's the forgotten phase sometimes,
Right,
but it's
absolutely.
just as important as those other
No
two.
question. And I'll be honest with you, Coach Tobin, he's our special teams coordinator, and he dots his I's and crosses his T's, and we work hard on our kick game. It is literally, like I'm telling you, it's 33% of what we do, just like the offense and defense. But yeah, I've never been part of a team that returned 3 kickoffs in 3 games, right? Wasn't it after the third game we had 3?
Yeah, because you didn't return one last week, right?
No.
Or the 2
So,
weeks before, so yeah.
I mean, I'm like Dennis. Whatever you're doing, man, just keep
doing
doing it. You're pushing the right buttons. But yeah, it definitely gives you lifts you up, and it's kind of stealing one. If you want to look at it that way, I don't say a cheap touchdown, but it's one that can certainly change momentum and change a game. Anytime. And special teams can do that. That you can win and lose on kick game, and so we feel good about our kick game. Cam's doing a great job. He's really a good punter. He's a better punter than a kicker, and he's doing both really well.
Speaking of that's like the forgotten position until you go out and see those kids. You're like, man, that kid's bombing those punts, angling them out at the 5.
It's huge. It really is. You pin them down. There's a lot of hidden yardage in kick games. So
Ronnie, Devin Bond is really came out of nowhere last year.
Yeah.
For you, played very well. Had an injury, right?
Yeah.
Missed some time. Mm-hmm. That hurt you a little bit, middle of the season.
A lot of it, yeah.
And came back last week with a pretty good one.
Yeah, he. The thing is, and it's we make zero excuses in this game, but it's a bit of an explanation that we haven't been full healthy
Completely
except
healthy.
for the first half of Brick, and then Devin goes out literally with a dislocated elbow on the first play of the second half.
Right.
And since that point, and we're still not 100%. That's football. I get it. Coaches go through it, but this year it's really hit us pretty good. And the kids are just keep grinding, and it's that next man up. But yeah, Devin is a special player. He's very athletic, and he's smart when he runs the football. He's an easy guy to root for. Good guy, good teammate. He's going to battle his butt off like he did last week. And he's kind of back a little early with that elbow. I mean, his elbow was up here, so I mean, it wasn't just.
It's one of those injuries you hear and you just you make you
Well,
cringe.
when I went out, because it happened to Travis Squire his junior year.
So you knew right away what you were looking at.
So it wasn't good. So he's battling. We're sure happy. He's glad, that he's back. Hoping to get some defensive play from him in the next couple of weeks. Right now he's just cleared for offense.
Ryan, offense and defense, what do you like best?
Man. I started off my sophomore year. I only played defense. I only played offense. We have what we call a double dipper, and I didn't get any defensive snaps.
What kind of ice cream in the double dipper?
I had a blue
That's what I'm
jersey on.
thinking.
Nah, but defense, you're more. You can play. You can be more physical.
Yes.
Offense, you kind of you got to slow it down. You got to think a little bit. But I love both of it. But definitely, I'm more of an offensive guy. And at the end of the day, I started from my roots.
Okay, now you are here representing those Indians, so you got to mention some of those big guys up front on both sides. Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
And don't leave anybody out.
Oh yeah.
You'll hear
on our
about
O-line,
it.
No pressure.
Yeah, you
Ryan.
will.
On our O-line, I've been moving around all year. I started at center against Brick, and then I moved out to guard. I've been playing guard, and this week, as of right now, I'm playing tackle.
Okay.
But you got Justin Kozak at a right tackle. He's a 3-year starter. He's a great player, great two-way player. He's great on defense. You got at our right guard this week, you got Dave Lazaro. He always comes in, always hits. He always wants to play football. Center, you got Noah Schmidt. He's playing great. Love Noah. It's my good friend. Left guard, you got Jimmy King. He's a new guy, but he's playing great. Both sides. We got a bunch of both sides. The D-line, you had Nico Crude up. He's a great player for us. He had a great game against Freehold. And you got me at end, Nico at end. And then on the inside, you have Kozak. And then the other guys it's like Jimmy King, Josue Tecalero, Noah Schmidt. We got a nice little rotation.
Outstanding job.
That's why he brought him. He knew he was going to shout out his guys.
That's why he brought him.
Sick knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
now I
sometimes.
got to answer. I got to
You
answer
gotta-
my one question.
You got to
right?
get into your patented question.
Okay.
I usually have 2, but
Pasta parties at South?
Yeah.
Do you? You have the pasta parties?
Nah, we don't.
Oh, you don't have pasta
No,
parties?
no pasta parties.
Well,
And Sean, he's got his question just got flushed down the
No pasta
toilet.
parties.
he has, but we haven't. COVID shut everything down last
that's
year.
true.
Right?
But you usually do.
Our
But
last
no,
dinners-
his sophomore year,
Yeah.
we have a team dinner every Thursday.
Well, you're going to have to project a little bit.
Yeah,
on
apparently
this
we're
one.
gonna dinner
I was
this
going to
week,
ask
so.
you at the parties who eats the most. That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, well, we'll find out
Pick one of
Friday.
those.
Yeah, we'll find
Friday.
It's funny you ask because we're bringing them back this week.
There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
There
So
you
because
go.
we're playing Saturday, we're going to have one Friday.
You got to
Pretty happy
make
to
like
hear
the
about that,
belt.
yeah.
We'll get back to you.
Indian champion.
Why
We
is this game Saturday, by the way?
Administrative reasons,
Oh,
I believe.
okay.
Yeah, I just tell me when we're
tell me
kicking
when
off.
we're
Yeah, tell me when we're kicking off. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Okay.
So when everything came out where hey we're gonna have some fans back and all this stuff and it's gonna be more of a normal season. Probably the first school I thought of was Toms River South. Detweiler's not the same without the people in the stands.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a bunch before. There's just something about a Friday night there.
Yeah.
And it's not like if you walk in, if you know nothing about Toms River South football and you look at the crowd and gauge their enthusiasm, you wouldn't know whether you guys have one win or whether you have 12 wins or the number one team in the state.
Yeah.
And I know that's such a huge part of the experience there. What was it like for you? First home game with all those guys back, the tribe in the stands, and running out
man.
onto the field.
It's the best feeling ever. I mean, our student section's always there no matter what. We could have a bad game the week before. They're always there. They're always rooting us on. I mean, it's great playing for South. Wouldn't want to play anywhere else.
And you played there, assistant. Now, like that is such a huge part. School spirit and pride at Toms River South is a big part of
I remember,
everything.
Yeah, being a kid, growing up with it. But back then they played Saturdays.
Yes.
And I can remember, the stadium always being loud. But I'll be honest with you, since we've gone to Friday night years ago, I mean, there's sometimes it's so loud. You have a hard time communicating with the coaches, even though we have the headset on and the mic, and
Yeah, it's hard to hear it on the field,
It's
too.
hard to explain South if you're not there walking the halls and being part of it. You're like, yeah, whatever. But no, it really is. It's a special, special place run by special people. It really is.
That's for sure.
Ryan,
okay,
I
I was just going to say, when I coached, I was always on the opposite sideline.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I wanted to come out and knock that teepee down? I mean, seriously. I mean, you cannot get better tradition than Toms
right in the
River
end
South.
zone.
And anybody that goes there will tell you the same thing, whether they win or lose.
Yeah.
just got a couple minutes left. Ryan, you play any other sports?
I did track. I stopped last year, but I'm going to go back to it this year. I throw and track.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do that for winter and spring.
You
so.
looking to play football in college?
I'm thinking about it. Definitely,
Okay.
I'm definitely getting some interest around, but
Yeah, his name's
see
out
where the
there.
future takes me.
Good
What
stuff.
are you coming in at?
Right now I'm 6'3", 215. I lost a little weight from
COVID?
Yeah.
when I got COVID.
First,
I lost a good
first
amount
time
of weight.
I saw him, I go,
nimble
where's
now, though.
20
Yeah.
pounds? What happened?
Yeah, I lost weight.
He's
Yeah.
nimble. Now you can pull
Yeah,
him and
now
all
we
that.
can, yeah, we do that.
Got a couple minutes left, so just stick with us while we go over some of the games next week. We mentioned number 4 Wall at number 3 Donovan. Big one, our Butcher's Block Game Day Countdown Game of the Week. You see Ed giving you everything on our Facebook Live page there on Friday night. Rumson can clinch the American Division outright title with a win over Colts Neck. That'll be on Saturday in the Colonial. Here's the scenario. If Middletown South beats Southern, they win the outright title. If Southern beats Middletown South and Manalapan beats Jackson, you got the old 3-way championship. RBC, a heavy favorite over Ocean to clinch that division title outright. The Indians will try to play spoiler against the Green
Long
Wave,
range.
who can clinch that title outright there. The Independence Division, nobody knows what's going to happen. You got Brick, Middletown, North Lacey, all 2-1 in division. A huge game at Keller Memorial Field on Friday night. Middletown North at Brick. Central can wrap up the Liberty going up against Matawan. Central has shut out every division opponent they've played this year. I don't know if that's ever happened or the last time it's happened, but it could happen against Matawan on Friday night. Barnegat looking to wrap up the Patriot Division. Point Borough looking to wrap up the Patriot Division home against Barnegat. And in that national division, it'll be Monmouth Regional looking to beat Point Beach and take care of that division. So some great stuff coming up, and one of those will be with these guys. Toms River
Nothing
South
like
and Long
football.
Branch should be, like you said, there is nothing like football.
High
So
school football.
I want to thank everyone our guests tonight, Ron Signorino Jr. and Ryan Flory. Guys, thank you very much
having
for coming down. Dave Ryden, Marlboro Athletic Director, and also Middletown Athletic Director Rich Carroll for talking us through the Shore Conference and state playoff scenarios. Thank everyone here, the staff at the Office Restaurant and Lounge. Steve Meyer behind the camera, Tom Tremblay keeping us going. For Ed Sarluca, I'm Bob Batters. Thanks for watching the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network.